want to talk to you about something really important, which is clinical safety in artificial intelligence. First, I want to tell you a story. So about 3 weeks ago, I was added to a WhatsApp group with 189 of the people I graduated medical school with. And it was about our 25-year anniversary, 25-year reunion, which is both exciting and horrifying to me because according to my Gen Z niece, I am now officially in my throwback era. Now, it did make me think back to the first week where I was a newly minted doctor. I was unfortunate enough to start on a week of nights, okay? But despite this, I strode confidently onto the medical ward with the ER theme tune playing in my head. Dr. Emeline Ramos, give me a chest to crack open. I am here to save some lives. Now, of course, that fantasy was smacked out of me about 8 hours into my 16-hour shift because I was in a large teaching hospital and I was covering 4 wards with hundreds of patients. Unfortunately, the departing house officer left me over a dozen patients to admit overnight. Now, the truth was that I was barely qualified, okay? Despite the 5 years at medical school, that night taught me that I actually didn't know anything. And halfway through my shift, I was probably 4 parts exhausted and 1 part terrified. Because I knew that as a qualified medical doctor, every decision I made during that shift mattered. Every chart I looked at, every observation I put in the notes, every drug that I prescribed could have consequences. And that's the thing about healthcare. The margin for error is tiny, and the cost of a mistake is human. Now, 25 years later, I'm still asking the same question I asked during that first shift, which is how can we make sure we get this right? Because now, as we bring artificial intelligence into clinical care, that question has never been more important. We need to make sure that we design safety into all the products that we build. Now, with any other industry, if you get something wrong, you can just retract an email or you can redo your slide. At worst, you may end up in the papers because your AI-generated report happened to fake some references. And then you have to go and give the government their money back. Not naming any names. But it's really different in healthcare because we work in an environment that is under constant high pressure. And as everybody in this room knows, it's really resource constrained. And it's relentlessly human. Humans looking after other humans. And just like me on that first night, that first shift, people tend to work beyond exhaustion. And they're juggling too many patients, and they're making dozens of critical decisions every hour. Now, AI can, of course, help with this, because it can reduce the noise, it can surface insights, it can help you work faster, but it can also amplify mistakes that we as humans make really often. And that's why safe and responsible AI in healthcare, it's not just about hype or compliance. It's about clinical accountability. Because every AI recommendation must be transparent, it must be traceable, and it must be verifiable by the clinician who has that duty of care to their patients. Now, if you're in this room today, I'm sure you're already thinking about this. Whether you're thinking about or about to implement IntelliCare, and whether you're evaluating the possibly hundreds of AI scribes and AI tools that are out there. This is the conversation that your clinicians are having today. Can I trust this thing? Now, I am fortunate enough to work with a lot of really great people at InterSystems, both clinical and non-clinical. But we all universally agree that we need to design safety into every AI feature that we ship. Now, how do we do that? I've already told you that we take safe and responsible AI really seriously in InterSystems. Not just as a marketing slogan, but as a design principle. When we began building IntelliCare 2 years ago, it seems like a long time ago, we started with a single question. What does safety look like when AI sits next to a clinician at the point of care? Every feature we design follows these 3 principles. The first one is human oversight. AI must never write directly into a patient's notes. The clinician must always be in the loop, and they must always be in control. The second is about transparency. Every AI action should be traceable and should be auditable. It's about who asked the what data was used, what was reviewed, what was updated, what was changed, what was accepted. And the third one is about our system safety guardrails, which not only define what the AI can do, but what the AI mustn't do. And these are explicit exclusions that can prevent unsafe or autonomous decisions. Now, in practice, what does this mean? It means that when a clinician asks IntelliCare to summarize an audio transcript of a consultation, they're not only given the results of that request, they can actually see and hear exactly what was said, with full provenance and full transparency, and everything in the audit logs. Now, these principles are built into our engineering and clinical safety processes. IntelliCare is developed under ISO 13485. There'll be a quiz about that later. These are medical device standards. And we're also aligned with the European AI Act, which is really important because that's the world's first comprehensive legal framework for artificial intelligence. And it's been designed to ensure that AI systems are safe, transparent, and trustworthy, especially in such a high-risk sector like healthcare. Now, if clinicians are going to trust AI, we know that that trust must be earned by design. For us at InterSystems, principles really aren't enough. Safety only becomes real when you test it. And we test it relentlessly and in real-world scenarios. Now, before we release our features, these are tested the same way clinicians like to test treatments, systematically, repeatedly, and under stress. Now, our AI safety engineering team really, really wants you to know something. Okay, so the AI assistant was tested using a systematic multi-iteration evaluation framework that generated quantitative reports on output accuracy and alignment and conducted across several model version configurations, including temperatures, token limits, and system prompts that can control response accuracy and creativeness. And if you don't speak nerd language, that means we tested it hundreds of times against clinical scenarios based on realistic patient data and compared that output to what experienced clinicians would expect to see. Now, we measured for things like hallucinations or errors or like dangerous emissions. And we found them because testing isn't about proving perfection. It's about knowing your failure modes before software actually reaches the front line. Now we flagged problems, we investigated root causes, and then we fixed them. And it doesn't stop there, because once live, we do continuously monitor performance through user feedback and auditing. And you'll see some of those symbols on the screen a bit later today. We've got some, thumbs up, thumbs down. We must have had some millennials on the development team. Because it's not really about catching every error before we go live. It's about building the capability to detect and correct safely. Safety testing gives us confidence in the code, but trust, real trust, actually comes from people. Which brings us to the final piece. Designing for human trust. The safest AI is not one that never makes mistakes. I think that's impossible. It's actually one that keeps humans in control, informed, accountable, and confident enough to spot whether an AI has made a mistake. Now, as a clinician, I know what it means to carry responsibility for human lives. Every decision, every test, every dose can have consequences. And as technologists, which is a lot of us here in the room, we now share a new kind of responsibility to design the systems that support those clinical decisions safely, transparently, and ethically. Now, since launching IntelliCare, we've had clinicians come up to us to express their delight in how much we've really thought about AI trust and AI safety. Because medicine has always been about trust. It's about the trust between a patient and the clinician, and about their team and their tools. And that doesn't change with artificial intelligence. What changes is how we design for that trust, where we keep humans in the loop, where we make every AI action transparent and traceable, and how we hold ourselves accountable for what we actually create. At InterSystems, for us, safety isn't just a checkbox. It's actually a reflection of our values as a company. When we build AI that's safe and empathetic and transparent, we're not just trying to improve health systems. We're actually protecting what matters the most. And in the era of generative AI, that's actually human judgment and human reasoning and human connection. So as you think about your own AI journey, and I know some of you are already thinking about it, know that you're not alone in asking all these really hard questions. At InterSystems, we don't claim to know all the right answers, but we are asking the right questions, and we're really committed to building the right product with you. Thank you very much.